Good morning, Chair Ballendorf, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Good morning. Thank you, Gretchen. We'll now convene the board caucus meeting for Tuesday, January 21st. And I'd like to welcome our new board member, Pete Holmes, first time in person here. So welcome, Pete. We're glad to have you on board. We have a couple of agenda items that we'll start with, and we'll start now that we're in session with Mark giving us a legislative update. So Mark Webster, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Ballendorf and members of the board. Welcome to week 2 of the legislative session. After something of a slow start, I think we're seeing a real flurry of bills impacting the agency being dropped in the last couple of days. Something I've noticed is that the budget situation is kind of suffusing through all aspects of session, as I think members and the new governor confront a large deficit and try to think about what that means, not only for this session, but for the next 4 years. I think for us as an agency, that means that we're going to get a lot of scrutiny on our fiscal notes and a lot of scrutiny from the fiscal committees when bills make it that far. A lot of things that cost money may have trouble. I think that's just an obvious point. Second thing, I think it means a focus on the revenue and taxes that an agency like ours collects. So we've seen tax bills on tobacco and vapor products today, and an embodied carbon tax on cigarettes. Those are kind of a package with the flavor ban, which would cut revenue. So what can you do to add revenue if you're doing something that might cut revenue? The other big one is a tax study on alcohol taxes in Washington. Now, we've seen in the past few years efforts to tweak things at the margin of spirits taxes, but I think the legislature wants to look at the whole thing, examine the system as a whole. So the Department of Revenue would do that study. And then today's introductions brought this year's home cultivation of cannabis bill. We've seen that many times in the past, as well as a bill that would allow producers and processors of cannabis to do some limited direct sales to members of the public. This morning, Will and I should say Will is with me here in the room now, met with senators this morning to discuss the social equity in cannabis program and what we and our partners at the Department of Commerce are seeing out there. And I think, we'll start to see some work sessions or further discussions around the cannabis industry in general. We thought we might do that in the House. We might still do that later on. I think we might see that in both chambers. Now, that's a very, very broad topic, but we do have a lot of expertise in the agency, and we'll do what we can to leverage that to bring legislators up to speed. So I think for now, I'm going to leave it there and see if you have any questions. It's another busy day.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from board members?
Mark, what's your stance in the conversation so far on the social equity program?
Yeah,
and what they're feeling.
That's a great question. I think we're all still feeling that out. I think you've got folks who think there are serious problems and almost want to slow down, and others who are like, we know what the problems are at this stage. The biggest one that we've talked about here and elsewhere is real estate, finding a location. So if we know the problem, let's just do something to tackle it. So I think we're going to get ideas that are coming from both sides of, let's work on, for example, the 1,000-foot buffer zone, right? And others who are saying this isn't the right time to put another group of potential licensees when the first group is still struggling to find locations. So again, I think we're going to get the gamut on that.
Thank you.
Mark, I had just a couple of questions. Going back to the tax study on alcohol, can you clarify for me who's asking for that? Is that a department request? Is it a governor request, or is there an actual bill that's been introduced?
There's an actual bill. Yeah, so that's not an agency request bill, but that's something that I think many members of the industry have been looking for, and it just bringing everybody up to speed on the taxes. And for the new board member Holmes, one of the issues that keeps coming up year after year after the introduction of some of these ready-to-drink spirit-based beverages that are the same alcohol, very similar product type to a hard seltzer that's brewed with something else, malt alcohol or whatnot, or grape-based alcohol, they're taxed at very, very different rates. So we've seen bills to change that, to create a new category that reflects what folks are seeing on grocery store shelves. And I think instead of doing that and trying to get at it at a piecemeal level, I think the idea this time was, let's just look at the whole thing. What makes sense? Why do we have different rates between, beer, wine, different size breweries, different strength of wine and spirits now, especially now that spirits category is a lot more diverse. So I think that's the impetus there.
Mark, when you get a moment, can you send us a bill number to that?
Absolutely.
Bill? That'd be great.
Sure.
So just for my fellow board members and for Mark, I went through the list of bill analysis, and I just wanted to give you, Mark, a list of the ones that I'm tracking most for myself, just so you're aware and you can keep an eye on. So House Bill 1066 regarding the data dashboard, I definitely want to follow that and make sure that we are on top of what's happening with that bill, particularly in lieu of the dashboards that we've put out and how do those two mirror one another. House Bill 1067, moving cannabis to the Department of Agriculture, just have that on my radar and want to be on top of that one. House Bill 1203, ending the sale of certain tobacco and nicotine products, so flavored, staying on top of that one. The blood alcohol concentration from 0.08 to 0.5, so House Bill 1315. House Bill 1346 regarding out-of-state investments in cannabis. I want to be tracking that one. The ESOP, House Bill 1348. And then two more, the Senate Bill 5201, and I think the House is 1433 regarding psychedelic substances, and I think there's a role for the LCB in there, so I want to be tracking that one. And then the last one is the cannabis advertising bill. So obviously there's a whole lot of other bills, and I don't mean to say that they're not important, but just so you know, those are the ones that stood out to me that I'm really interested in, and would love to hear if there's, as I know we're early in session, so I don't expect other board members necessarily to have a strong opinion about any of these, but as we go along, please, this is, I think, a great time for us to be talking amongst each other about things that we want to make sure we're tracking and well informed on and that kind of stuff. I will, Pete and Ollie, be attending. There's a internal meeting once or twice a week. I've changed my schedule during session so that I could be here on Mondays to be either in person or at least join online for that particular meeting. So I can be keeping you informed as well through this meeting, Mark.
So that brings
Mark,
up.
You normally send us out a legislative report, which would have all of those bills on there, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
So that comes out on Fridays,
Right.
and we can make sure that all the board members get it. Apologies if you didn't. One thing that your remarks reminded me of, board member, is that the governor's office, the new Ferguson administration, has sent out some guidance on when agencies can testify on bills. So one of the bills that you mentioned, the transferring of cannabis regulation to agriculture, is something that we did testify on in the first week of session. Got some, kind of zinger questions, but I think it was important for us to kind of put our view out there that we had some concerns with the bill. The new guidance would suggest that we might not be able to do that. So I think we're going to be working with our new policy advisor, who Will and I met with yesterday, and try to channel those concerns about the policy of these various bills through that agency. We can still talk about it here, and I want to make sure that these meetings we can have those kind of policy debates, but you might see me testifying on some of these bills a little less than last year, for example.
Great, thank you for that. All right, nothing else, Mark, from you? Okay, I'm seeing nothing else from the fellow board members, so thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
See that. Thank you. All right, moving right along to our next agenda item, we have Anita Bingham, our Human Resources Director, here to provide us our quarterly update from Human Resources. So Anita, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to have Member Holmes with us, so thank you.
Do you have a PowerPoint?
I do.
Oh.
Yeah. Your dog, though. Sorry about that. And I believe you guys got this by email,
Yes.
so it's kind of little small to read some of these on here, but if you want to look at them later. So we're going to talk about the employee engagement survey results. And for member homes, the state agencies every October take an employee engagement survey, and it's typically been the same types of questions so that we can kind of do some trends on them. But occasionally they do switch it up a bit. So that's what I'll be going over first, and then just letting you guys know that we're working on our policies still. And so if we want to dive in, Gretchen. So an overview of the survey is that it covers 12 engagement dimensions, and each dimension represent 1 to 4 questions on the survey. There are 27 Likert scale questions, 3 follow-up questions, and 12 demographic questions. This year, we had 380 employees at the time of the survey and 280 responses. So our response rate was 74%. Compared to the statewide response rate of 62%. And we had about the same response last year. So we're seeing pretty consistent. So this slide shows our current ratings compared to last year and to the enterprise, and is grouped by engagement topic. So it's kind of hard to see up there, but when you look at it, I think the first column to the right is our scores compared to last year. And then on the far right there is our scores compared to the enterprise. So our top 3 categories are work-life balancing, averaging 84% positive. And people are overall satisfied with their telework opportunities and have healthy work-life balance, which is a good thing. Manager effective.
Question real quick,
Sure.
Gretchen. Gretchen, can we make that bigger by chance for us in the room, or is it not possible to make that bigger on the screen? Okay.
Do that line.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
it is small. Manager effectiveness was 77% positive, and our pair scores were 73 positive. And for member homes, pair is a reference to pro-equity, anti-racist. So it's supporting those efforts. And our lowest categories are change management, averaging only 43%. The questions associated with those are senior management do a good job of communicating the reasons behind important changes are made, and I feel supported during organizational change. So we're low there. The other 2 lower categories are in engagement and growth, and also development. They both average 60%. Overall, our scores are down from last year, except in the areas of work-life balance and pair. And I think we see from the comments, there's a lot of factors potentially with that. There's people's, dissatisfaction with pay is always one that comes up in the comments. And growing and learning development opportunities. We're a smaller agency, so our promotional opportunities are somewhat limited in some areas, and people always mention that in terms of things that they would hope for. So I think this year, hopefully we can focus on some more internal opportunities in terms of learning and growth for people, even if, they can't necessarily promote. If we can give them different opportunities to where they feel like they're growing, that might help with that. I think, there are comments about support from senior management team and the board. So those kinds of things may be factored into our scores this year. Next. So this slide shows the 12 engagement dimensions and the questions associated with each. And so it's just kind of interesting to look at when you have a chance. It's interesting, I noticed under the diversity category, the overall score is 66% positive, which is pretty good. My supervisor treats me with respect, rating 87% positive, which is our second highest scoring question. But the other 2 questions related to senior leadership are low at 56 and 54%. So that's what kind of brought that down overall. Next slide. So these 3 questions were new this year. Question 28 asks about how long people intend to work at the LCB. 234 people responded to the question. You see the percentages there, but in terms of numbers, 12 people said that they intend to stay 6 months or less, 23 over 6 months up to 1 year, 72 over 1 year up to 3 years, 5 over 3 years up to 5 years, and 127 over 5 years. So it's a good number of people at least that plan to be with us for a while. And, there's various reasons why people might be considering leaving. There's retirements, there's, if they are planning on promotional opportunities that we don't offer here, could factor into that. So we don't really know, of those people, the reasons why, but it's good to see that a good number are here for a while.
And that's a new question you said, right? And that's a new statewide question?
Yes.
So we can compare our agency to others and see where we compare it to. 'Cause I'm just always curious about, are some agencies seen more as a transitionary kind of a promotional, get in with the state and then look for other opportunities?
Right.
Where do we fit compared to other state agencies, which may be more of a destination, if you will, kind of thing?
Right.
I don't know if that's a factor or not, just curious.
Right. I think towards the end of the month, State HR is going to publish the enterprise dashboard down on their website, and then we'll be able to go in and filter so we can kind of do some more comparing against, whoever we want to.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think of the LCB as a destination, so we want to do everything we can to work towards making it a destination for long-term employment.
Exactly. Yes. Question 29 is a follow-up to question 14. I have access to the resources I need to do my job effectively, and it only came up for those people who answered that question negatively. So there was 47 people that responded, and the top responses were they wanted improved technology and more staff to improve their work experience. Question 30 asks about what would most improve your satisfaction with your job. 12% said more or better collaboration within and across agencies, divisions, and teams. And 11% said more career advancement opportunities. Our results there do closely align with the enterprise results, with 12% citing career advancement, followed by 9% for more resources to do the job, and 9% for better collaboration. So you see that we're right in there with that. And this slide is just a visual of the previous information, showing up to 3 things that people would pick to improve their job satisfaction, and then what resources would improve their work experience. The top factor requested by the enterprise on that one is additional staff. So we're kind of in line with that. People feeling like more people to help with the workload would be good. So these are the 12 demographics that are collected. They're all self-reported and optional. We had 60% response rate to the demographic questions compared to 80% for the enterprise. So we're a little bit lower on that. They did find, State HR did find that people are more willing to give their raise as part of the employee engagement survey than they are with our HRMS data that we can update through our portal. The other thing that's different about this as opposed to HRMS is that people can select multi-races, which they're not able to do in the HRMS. So next. So this slide shows the 6 demographics for those employees that participated. You can take a look at what we have there. We still have a fair amount of people that prefer not to answer. So, I'm not sure why, if people don't understand kind of why we need to have that information, just in terms of trying to figure out within our agency if we have any specific issues. But people are still a little bit unsure about providing that to us. Next slide. This one is showing our percentages by participation by race. And then looking down below at that, what we call the heat map, you see the breakdown of the race and the number of responses in each group at the top there. The color will remain white when the results are within 5 points of the agency percentage. They'll be red when they're 5 points or more below that score. and green if they're 5 points or more above the comparator. The darker the shade, the larger the difference in our agency score. So you see that employees that prefer not to give their raise score significantly below every engagement dimension. That's the red in that prefer not to say. This is consistent with enterprise results and according to state HR analysis indicates a systemic issue or unique challenges that may be faced by these groups. And I would just say, just in closing with this part of it, that I gave this presentation to management team on Friday, and we're all talking about it. We're planning for next steps. So definitely more conversation to come on that. We're kind of early in looking at it, going over the comments that people sent and just planning for next steps. Next slide. And this one just gives you an update on the policies that we've recently done. And we plan to work on 11 policies and 1 procedures for the new year. So hopefully we'll get those all caught up and stay on track with that. And that is all I had, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
I have no questions. I was following it on the email because you did email this out. So I was able to see some of the stuff you couldn't see online, but no questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I will take a look at it when I'm able to actually read the whole report. I will just say that I do see the LCB as a destination and an employer of choice, and our employees are our greatest asset. And I take that seriously, as I know the management team does. And so I look forward to working with everybody to increase areas, to learn from one another. I've talked to staff who have left the LCB and come back to the LCB because they really like working here. And I've talked to staff who've left for various other reasons. And I think those are all opportunities for us to learn from and look forward to continuing to engage with staff about making us the employer of choice if you come to work for the state. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right. Well, that concludes our formal agenda. Any board member or executive assistant reports today?
Nothing for me.
Okay, seeing nothing.
I'll only say how happy I am to be here, having been on the outside looking in for so long. I'm still learning the ropes internally, but so far meeting everyone in-house and the help that I've gotten onboarding, so to speak, I feel really very, very positive about it and excited to be here. So thank you.
That's great. And, you know, one of the things when I first joined the board, before I became a board member, I talked to both the other board members before I joined, and we talk about a well-balanced board and having board members who have different perspectives. And when I look at what board member Garrett brings to the board, and when I look at my background, and now I look at your background, I feel the same. I feel like we have a well-rounded board who bring different perspectives, and they're all important perspectives. And I look forward to working with you, as I know board member Garrett.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Everybody have a great day.